Welcome to the PooCast podcast with your hosts,
Browne
and Pickering.
Hello. Welcome to PooCast podcast. I'm Kaye Browne.
I'm Brian Pickering.
And I'm Jocelyn Watts.
We're out of order, but who cares? We're here. Okay, it's going to be a great episode. Brian, what's happening?
Well, this week we've got some very interesting stories. Number one is how to store food and make it last longer. You know, you see these news stories about people throwing stuff out everywhere. Well, we're not going to do that. We're going to show you how to save stuff and reduce food waste. And we've got a food storage list for you as well, which is really good. The second one we've got coming up is we've got some apps to save you money. So you can go into a shop and you go beep, 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 and scan everything, and it'll give you some good information.
I can't wait to hear those real sound effects.
And our favourite young little intern, Misinformation, is going to be here talking about oils. You know, can you eat oils and reuse them, or do you throw them out or whatever? Plus, we got some information from Dr. Zach Turner about nutrition labels and how to read them. So, you know, quite often you'll go into a supermarket and you say, what the heck is this? How do you do it? And the last one we got is a long-time friend of ours, Adam Woodhams, and it's all about better gardens on the road and in small apartments. So we'll get into all that very shortly. But first...
And now, the latest PooCast podcast news update with Kaye Browne.
You might have heard the saying that bloke or that gal's blood is worth bottling. But what about their poop?
Oh, no.
Well, Perth's Red Cross Lifeblood Centre says its fecal microbiota transplants, or FMT for short, are proving such a lifesaver for people with serious gut infections that they're calling for more volunteers to help increase their facilities' output.
All right. Did you write this?
Yes. Don't worry, it's all done very discreetly, with the poop being processed before being frozen and shipped off to hospitals for patients with the ghastly, potentially fatal gut infection called Clostridioides difficile, better known as C. diff, which I like a lot better. Incredibly, in 95% of patients, just one transplant of good gut bacteria, you know where that goes, solves their problem within hours. And by the way, there are several places around the country that do this. Perth isn't the only place. But this is a great idea, collecting poo donations for FMT. Apparently, one place in Sydney reportedly pays for healthy poo. I wasn't brave enough to try Googling for a list because I didn't want to see endless ads for poo products on my news feed. So Google at your own peril.
Absolutely. In fact, this story you can see on abcnet.au, and we'll put up a link there that Red Cross is calling out for poo donations. That'd be fun, wouldn't it, Joss?
How do you actually do that?
Well, do you want me to show you?
No.
Okay.
Just like you do at home or when you're out, it's just that it gets collected before it hits the water.
Okay. A little bit like Uber Eats. No, okay.
Nothing like Uber Eats. Nothing like Uber Eats. Okay, speaking of things like eating and drinking, our next story comes courtesy of the good people at Body and Soul Magazine. They suggest you might be surprised to learn that the lovely glass of water you put on your bedside table before going to sleep is probably not the best thing to sip in the morning. Why? Because that water has absorbed carbon dioxide from the air overnight, which makes it taste stale or even bitter. Even worse, it's now a petri dish of uninvited guests, dust, dead skin cells, and airborne bugs with their bonus bacteria. Even that closed bottle of water that you've been sipping over a week or so quite probably now has bugs from your saliva. The solution? Get room service. In my case, BP brings me a cup of tea in bed. Or two.
Or three. Yeah.
Now, just for an extra point, I used to keep a glass of water by my bed long before I heard about this story about the bugs. But I did stop doing that after walking into the bedroom and seeing one of my poodles, Cosmo, standing on the bed, happily lapping up the water from my glass.
Well, do you have a glass of anything by the bed? Like, apart from wine?
Usually, no, I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
My mother always had a glass of water by the bed, but I think it was because she, like me, suffered from a bit of reflux.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people who have reflux, okay, it's like, oh, a bit painful, have a sip of water.
I do actually have a glass in the bathroom so that if I do get up to go to the bathroom at night, I'll then fill it with water, fresh water, and then drink that.
It's better. It's better.
I'm not sure the bathroom's the right place.
I was just going to say, I didn't want to say anything, but look, we might get one of these special doctors to come around and check it out for you. What do you reckon?
And
You'd like that, wouldn't you?
well, I'm sure that you always put the lid down, which makes anything in the bathroom
That's the
much
ultimate,
better.
We'll talk about that in a
Should
minute.
have flushed with the lid up.
Oh, this next one's a good one.
Strange but true. One of my favourite areas in life, allegedly. It's strange but true. 2 Aussie teens went to Macca's to buy quarter pounders. They bought 3, one for their mate who unfortunately never showed up, but being nice blokes, they kept it for him even though they'd eaten their own. Some 20 years later, they still have that burger. One of the former teens reckons it still looks the same as the day they bought it.
Well, that says a lot about a certain brand of...
No, I think it says a lot about preservatives.
Okay, that's the word I was looking for. Preservatives.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think that would be the only one, but it's not the first time I've heard stories like this, so it's quite probably true.
Yeah.
I think the salad would have gone, though, by now. Anyways, the meat patty and the bun definitely have lived on. Now, lastly, some listeners may know that Brian and I used to make TV shows, infotainment series, reality TV. Don't blame us for the latest ones. But we did a lot of different things. But in terms of hearing weird or quirky ideas that you can watch online or pay-per-view websites, you'd think we've heard of just about any suggestion, right?
Yeah.
But I have to admit, I was shocked to learn that Koreans are flocking to a new website to binge on food porn. In Korea, apparently people love to watch other people eat all of the various things that they can't eat. An entrepreneur called Park Seo-yeon, and I apologise for the pronunciation, says people apparently enjoy the vicarious pleasure from watching people eat all the foods that they used to enjoy, but now when they're on a restricted diet, they can't enjoy them. They'd rather just watch.
And they're paying for this? So instead of like OnlyFans or something, it's like Only Food? Yeah.
I'm not sure about the title. Perhaps you'd like to Google it, Brian.
Okay.
I don't think you should.
But you wouldn't make much money out of that, would you?
Well, apparently, Miss Park makes about $15,000 Australian per month just from showing people stuffing their faces.
Hey, there we go. So you said you didn't want to do an OnlyFans page, Josie, so why not do an Only Food?
Do an Only Food.
I'm not sure that Jossie knows what OnlyFans is, BP, so we probably shouldn't leave that one around too long.
Thanks, Kaye. That's fantastic.
You're listening to the PooCast podcast with your hosts, Watts, Browne and Pickering.
We're going to get into our next story here about storing food and making it last longer. Now, Josie, a very quick question here, putting you on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
How do you store your food? Do you just leave it out when you come back shopping? What do you do with it?
Oh, mostly go straight in the refrigerator or the pantry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know the difference between a best before and a use by date?
I've been reading the script.
We can do scripts, it's just ad lib. Anyway, listen, we asked the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation's CSIRO, the Consumer Food Safety spokesperson Rosita Voskova, to weigh in. Now, we didn't ask her, but this is part of an ABC News story. And apparently she says the use-by dates are very firm, but it should be followed and the product shouldn't be used after that date. But the best before date has some wiggle room, which I thought was an interesting thing. So, I've gone in there and Kaye said, don't get anything that's, past its use by date or this, that and the other. But in fact, that's not a big problem.
Actually,
depending on the food.
Yeah, I'm pleased to have that clarified because I didn't really know the difference until getting here. Me and my friends, we generally just say that's a general guide.
Yeah. Well, she says that here. It says that it doesn't reflect the quality will drop after that date. It doesn't mean it will be unsafe to use, but, there's a bit of a balance there.
I think some people have a cast iron stomach. Brian, I'm looking at you. Jossie, I'm looking at you. Some of us are a bit more fragile if it's a little bit close to things. But I actually checked out the foodstandards.gov.au site, and they say date marks are provided by the manufacturers so that, they have to be responsible, so they have to give you an idea what is the use-by date when food needs to be eaten so that you cannot eat it after that date. So if it says use-by, because U is at the end of the alphabet, that means eat it by then or die. Well, not die, but get very sick.
Yeah.
However, most foods have a best before date, which means that it's at its premium quality. And if you eat it after that, you're not going to get, unwell, but it might be not so good for you. Like a few things in my freezer probably have frostburn. Sorry.
Only a few.
Only a few. It's a very small freezer nowadays. I used to have mountains of freezer space when I lived in Sydney. But now we move things around a bit quicker. And I guess one of the big things that people need to think about is, working out the use by and the best by dates are only a guideline. If they put their own little sticker on with the date they got it, it might give them some better ideas. I do that because you know how you open a jar of something, it says, use within 7 days, right? Straight in the fridge in the door, and it's like, damn, when did I open that? Is it still okay? So I think those little stickers you get from Officeworks are very handy.
Yeah, look, I mean, being a bloke, I don't do all the food and shopping and storing and all the rest of it.
Lady.
Well, I'm trying. You're learning me, aren't you? Eh? But I am learning, in fact, and how long things should stay out and where they should be stored and how they should be stored. Even simple things like bananas. Kaye gets green bananas because they're healthier for me personally. And I've learnt now you take them apart and then you put a little bit of alfoil on the ends and they will last longer.
Supposedly.
Not the rate I eat them, but that's another story.
Well, Queensland is also very tricky, I think, because it's so warm here.
Yeah.
What's your experience with bananas, Josie?
Well, I didn't know that little trick to putting the alfoil on the end, but it's a good point. Generally, I like them sort of middle of the range. Once they get overripe, I'm a bit yucky on those sorts of things. But if you put them in a cake, that's okay.
Oh, I didn't bring the bananas around for the cake. We were talking about that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but look, there's so many ways of storing things, and we'll put some stuff up on the website. But basically, it's a balance between how old something is and its use by date and how you've stored it. And they're saying plastic is the enemy, for instance. Don't put a lot of the foods just into a plastic bag and stick it in the fridge or the freezer because the plastic leaches out all sorts of crap.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because I've actually heard, and I actually do practice that, is to put a paper towel at the bottom of your vegetable tray, and that absorbs some of the extra moisture, and that does tend to make it last longer.
So it's kind of cool. I was just going to say the latest click-safe, microwave-safe, freezer-safe containers usually don't have bisphenol, and I'm not pronouncing it correctly, BSH plasticides in it, which can leach into foods. So I guess there's been a big push to use glass containers to put things in, not just mason jars, which are very pretty, but for those people who are living in smaller places with smaller fridges or traveling, glass containers are too heavy. So you do need to look out the really good ones that have the certification stamp on the bottom of the container to say it is safe to use.
Yeah. Well, the bottom line of all this particular story is the fact that apparently we Aussies are each throwing out about 312 kilos of food every year at a cost of around $2,000 to $2,500 per household, or around 1 in 5 bags of groceries throwing out on a regular basis. I mean, that's crazy.
That's a lot of waste.
A lot of waste, and, we're just throwing too much in the bin, basically.
And there's traffic miles involved with that. You've had to get a product. The product has been grown. It's been transported. You go to somewhere to buy it, blah, blah, blah. So, I think we're all becoming just a little bit more conscious of where we're getting our food, how we plan to use it, and I'm trying desperately to do food prepping. So if anyone listening has some really cool ideas on food prepping, I'd love to hear them, because I've looked at lots of sites and they go, oh, yes, chop it all up on a Sunday. Who buys their fresh food on a Sunday? The food markets are on a Saturday or another day.
Well, the bottom line with these 5 points regarding food and food waste is conscious purchasing. So that's the main point. So we'll put those 5 points up there. They actually make a lot of sense, even to me, which is fantastic. Okay, here we go. This is my area. Have you ever used an app to go shopping with, to find out best prices and whether it's any good for you or not?
Sometimes I've used Coles and Woolies, but not a lot. The main app that I use is my list of things that I want to buy, but not specifically for a particular
So slide it into your phone.
Yes, on my phone, yeah.
And you can compare Coles and Woolies prices there.
Oh, I can't do the comparing. I just make it's basically a grocery list.
Well, you'd be pleased to know there is an app that actually allows you to do that.
Okay.
And
it's free.
And it's free, and it's called Frugal.
Okay.
Frugl. And again, we'll put these links, and for both iOS and Android things. And there's plenty of specials that aren't visible when you head into the supermarket. But Coles and Woolies, you can go in and go, oh, okay, I'll go next door, whatever.
I'm excited about this one. I haven't actually used it, and my inner self says it's not spelt correctly.
Frugal.
Yeah, Rugl is it, But I like the idea that they're very soon going to also include Aldi and IGA stores. So that's the major stores across the country.
Yeah.
And it means that you can go, okay, I really need to get X this week. How much is this week? And I think it's fantastic. Saves time, effort, money, and pain. I love it.
There's quite a few here, but we'll just whiz through them very quickly. Half Price is another one. And once again, we'll put these on our website. Shop Fully lets you see what's been discounted in stores.
The latest catalogue.
Yeah, the latest catalogues, etc. What are we, out of milk? No, we're not out of milk, are we? We might be out of wine.
No, neither.
Maybe they need a BWS and a Dan Murphy's app.
Yeah, maybe. But milk is one of those things that people, just never like to be completely out of. What do you do with milk?
Well, generally I buy a bottle of fresh milk, and that's what I prefer to have, is your fresh milk. But I've always got reserves. There's the long life milk that I keep aside, and if I don't get to the shop when I run out of long life milk, then I've got powdered milk.
Wow.
So there's always milk of some sort at my place.
I know a few people that use powdered milk to make their own yogurt, for example. So, it's not such a bad thing. It's a very old-fashioned thing. I think they used it a lot many years ago, but given that we're all trying to find ways of making our dollars go further, it sounds like a very sensible idea.
Over the years, when I've been camping, and I'll take the powdered milk because you don't need refrigeration for it. It's good for travelling.
Yeah, look, there's so many here. We won't waste your time going through every single one, but there's one I downloaded recently called Yucca, which is a very interesting name for a food thing. Yucca, Yuka.
I think it might be Yucca.
Yucca, is it? Okay. But it was amazing. You scan the barcode on the side of the food item, and it'll say 80 out of 100, and you go, oh, okay, what's wrong with that? It goes up, too much sugar, or not enough sugar, not enough this or that or the other. It's actually really handy. Then the best part is it will give you alternatives, suggestions. So my favourite chili is the Frank's chili. And there's nothing against Frank's because I love you, Frank. But it says, no, too much sugar, too much this, too much this. And it gives me 3 or 4 little suggestions. And I'll show you this a little later on the phone. And I thought that was a great idea.
I think that's cool. It's actually an international app, and it actually, when you do join it, no cost, you then get suggestions. And of course, there is a little upsell, you can get some other services. However, the basic thing is absolutely perfect.
It's been audited by CanStar as well. So hopefully there's a little bit of truth in the fact that it's an independent app.
And on a similar line, Food Switch.
Oh, yeah. Tell us about Food Switch.
Well, it once again you use your phone to scan the barcode, whether it's an iPhone or an Android, it doesn't matter, and it will go, maybe not the best choice for you, and again, it will give you some other options. I do think this is designed to make it easier, although I can just imagine a few young mums with 3 kids hanging off the edge of the shopping cart going, oh, isn't there an even easier way? So
that's just a handful of the many, many apps that we've recently discovered. And you should check them out. We'll put all these links on our website, PooCast.com.au.
Hi, my name is Misinformation. Did you know you should always throw out tuna or fish oil? Yuck. You can't reuse it. It must be true. I saw it on the internet.
Or misinformation.
Yeah, it's doing this.
Well, it's unfortunate because it is hard to know if you're getting accurate information on the internet.
Exactly. What do you reckon, Joss? Fish oil, tuna oil out of a can or something. What do you do with it?
Actually, I don't buy the ones with oil. I buy the ones with water in it.
Oh, so it's only the water you're throwing down this year?
Yeah, it's still.
Well, there we go.
I do actually take cod liver oil and other fish oil tablets, which is a different sort of oil. But anyway.
Oh.
Well, the oil in canned fish is very it varies, is the easiest way to put it. We were lucky enough to live in Spain, and we love the fact that they take great pride in getting really good quality fish and different kinds of seafood, and they put it in cans, and they do put in quality oils. Whereas apparently in the past, the good old sardines that I used to love eating, my mother used to have to hide the cans rather than leave them in the pantry, because I would like to just open them up and eat them one by one. And again, I didn't think anything about the oil, and I certainly didn't think about where the leftover oil went. And there is a movement of saying that, you know, a better way of dealing with the oil out of cans is to pop it into our rubbish so that it doesn't go down the drain. It's much better for our environment. But, you know, it's hard because, you know, you just don't even think of it. So you're not the only one, I'm sure.
Yeah,
that's exactly.
Just a second though. But fish live in the water. Why can't the fish oil go down the drain into the water?
That's going down through a septic system, going through a treatment plant, then going out and being distributed. So they do say that some of the fat, if there's too much going down the sink, it does accumulate into lumps. And just to gross you really out, some years ago, many years ago in Sydney, I was sent to do a story on a particular beach in Sydney where the people lived close to a sewage outfall, and they were saying that there were clumps of fat encasing number twos.
Oh.
And so I went there to have a look and just cut one in half, and you could actually see that the poos hadn't been treated in the plant because of the too much fat going down the pipe. So I think there was a huge campaign in Sydney to try and stop people just, you know, doing their deep fried whatever and pouring it down the
That's actually very interesting. I mean, really interesting. And so we can forget misinformation. We'll believe misinformation. What do you reckon?
Okay.
But look, seriously, you can actually use some of that oil. And there's a website, PooCast.com, where experts say you can reuse the oil. So, and they give a reason why. And the other one is tastingtable.com, and ways to use leftover oil from a can of tuna. Again, we'll put both those links on our website.
We're all about, I guess, trying to help all of us
Well,
live better.
we're learning as well. We're learning.
You're listening to the PooCast podcast with your hosts, Browne and Pickering.
Now, speaking of learning, Joss, you know Dr. Zach Turner, don't you?
I do.
Not personally, but you know of him.
I know of him, yeah.
Now, nutrition labels, when you go shopping, do you pull up a can and go, okay, yeah, it's got X carbs, it's got some sugar, it's got this. How do you read them?
Not generally. I buy mostly fresh fruit if I can.
You just go, oh, that's cheap, I'll get that, I'll get that, I'll get that.
I don't buy a lot of canned food.
On the rare occasions that you do.
I still don't look that much at like a can of tuna or salmon. I'll go for whatever's water-based, but I don't really look at it, no.
So you eat tuna, salmon, fresh fruit and veg?
Yeah.
And porridge.
And porridge, lots of porridge, but no oysters. No, oysters are out.
And thank you for that little meme you found recently, which we posted on Facebook as a Friday funny about the oysters. Very good.
How did it go again?
Who in their right minds opened this up and said, wow, this piece of snot looks good to taste? Something like that. Anyway. Seriously, nutrition labels, Kaye particularly has started to even more actively look at nutrition labels. If you can see them, my God, they're so small, some of them.
Oh, hey, that's how it's good to have your phone with you. You can take a photo and then enlarge it.
Good point.
But there's all sorts of things in there. They talk about the serving size and the calories and the macronutrients, micro, hello.
It is very complicated.
You say, I say.
They put it out. I mean, to be honest, I guess the government authorities have tried to make it easier by saying, look, the best thing you can do is actually compare it to 100 grams rather than per serving, because a particular manufacturer might say that its serving size is 50 grams. Another manufacturer might say it's only 30 grams. So that one might on the surface look like it's a healthier choice. So check out how much sugar, salt, fats, carbs, fibre is in that item per 100 grams on the back of any item, and I think you'll have a better chance of working out what's going to be healthy.
There's also the ingredient list here is one of the things they're talking about, that this is where you'll find the pesky preservatives and additives that are in there. So when you're a diabetic, perhaps celiac or whatever, you need to be very aware of what you're kind of getting there, especially with the sugars and carbs and stuff. So,
and hidden sugars. You know, there are something like 22 names for sugar, apparently. Isn't that crazy?
That's incredible.
I know. And anything with OL on the end should be avoided at all costs. Sorbitol, I'm trying to think of some of the others I haven't got in front of me, but definitely lots of those things just are sneaky ways of putting sugar into our food and also our pets' food. And we don't want that either.
Now, Jossie, you're not a full-time nomad yet. You are going to go travelling soon, but you live in an apartment and you've got not a huge garden space to grow a personal garden of veggies. Have you ever tried growing your own veggies and bits and pieces?
In days gone by, when I was living, when my husband was around and alive and bringing up the family, yes, I did do a lot of gardening and when we lived in Gympie and other places. But now, no, I do a little bit of potting, I guess.
Potting? Sorry, not taking pot. Okay, let's make that clear for the audience. All right. Potting.
Potting, as in growing herbs and things within pots on my back
Oh, you do that? Oh, good.
I do, or I have done in the past. They're much at the moment because I've been going away a lot and, it's a bit hard to look after them when you're not here. But hydroponics I wouldn't mind getting into.
Okay.
Well, Brian's done a bit of hydroponics as well, actually, and aquaponics. We did that in Sydney. And the only problem was that one of our poodles was a mad keen water dog, and he used to like jumping into the fish pond, which was
sure.
Okay.
It was lovely.
He loved it. It was great. He was always very clean.
Okay.
Didn't do much for the aquaponics.
Well, we have a long-time friend, Adam Woodhams, who is let's call him a gardening guru. Is he a gardener?
Horticulturist.
Oh, he's actually, he's professional, isn't he?
Absolutely. We used to be friends at Better Homes and Gardens together.
Yeah. There we go. Well, he's got something to say about people who are travelling and wanting to grow food on the road, as well as small apartments and whatever. So check this out. Adam, let's talk about gardening now, trying to talk to people perhaps who are travelling or maybe who are setting up in a small environment, the so-called micro homes, small homes, tiny houses and whatever. So Kaye and I are now travelling in a caravan. She wants to grow some herbs and spices.
Yep.
Any ideas there, any secrets? I know some people do, but is it difficult?
The funny thing is you kind of almost have to treat them like pets when you're travelling. Because normally what you do...
take them to bed?
Not quite that much.
Right.
The fact is that the vast majority of herbs and even many of the vegetables do take well to growing in pots. So you've got a plus there. So it's in many respects not different to gardening on a balcony or in a courtyard. The difference is that you're going to have to pack them up every now and then and move with them. So most of the herbs, most of the veggies, as I said, can handle all this sort of stuff. You do need to apply the same sort of rules that you would if you were container gardening on balconies. So, a quality potting mix, good pots. But the difference is you're going to have to start looking at things like making sure instead of you might normally select a tall pot and terracotta and that sort of thing, you're going to want to start looking at the lightweight pots instead. So if you've got bigger veggies and things, you want to use the lightweight composite type pots. But you also want to start looking at things that are a bit more squat because if you're going to load all this stuff, you've got it outside the annex when you set up for a week or so, and then you're going to load it in the van before you take off. You don't want something that's top heavy that's going to tip over. So you're better off sticking with low troughs and low tubs and those sort of things that have a lower centre of gravity, so they're not going to move around.
There's a weight issue too, isn't it, with caravanning? So
exactly. So you want those sort of things. Now, a lot of herbs and veggies can grow with pretty condensed roots, so you don't have to worry too much about getting them into a bigger pot and a bigger pot and a bigger pot. The thing is they'll just get thirstier and hungrier, so they can tolerate being a bit root bound. And bear in mind too, most veggies and most herbs are actually annual plants. So they're only going to be suitable in those pots for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, depending on the circumstances and the plant.
So once they've grown and you pick them, you plant it seasonal.
Things like rosemary, things like chives, they can keep going for a long time. Things like mint, oregano, they're more perennial type herbs.
They're sort of kitchen shelf thing, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're just there for you.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of the fussier ones, like, things like basil and coriander and stuff like that, they're short-term growth. So you don't have to worry too much about pot size. But as I said, it might mean that they're going to get thirstier and hungrier. So you need to be thinking about liquid feeding them or keeping them fed well with a granular fertiliser. The real trick is going to be the vast majority of herbs and veggies like a lot of sun.
Right.
So if you're going to stick them inside the van while you're on the road for 2 days, you need to make sure when you get to the other end that you can put them in a spot where they are still going to get a lot of sun. And look, sometimes that might mean, because of the way you set the van up and you've got your annex out and all that sort of thing, you might actually have to commit yourself to going, okay, I'm going to have to put them on this side in the morning and I'll just need to move them around in the afternoon around the corner to get more sun. So, because most do want sort of, that 6-hour range of sun a day.
Now, with animals, there are restrictions of certain animals you can take into certain states. Does the same apply for plants?
It does, yes. There are some restrictions. When we moved up here, I brought an enormous number of my plants up with me because they're, special. Some have grown for years and years. Some are very, very dear to me because they're from family members that have passed away and all those sort of things. What I did was I actually got in touch with the domestic quarantine to check what was okay to move around and what wasn't. Okay. And they asked me for a list of the plants and they said, yeah, fine. Normally the restrictions, for instance, around here, around the sort of Noosa Sunshine Coast region, you have to be very careful with moving banana plants around. So there's very, very tight restrictions on moving banana plants because of the potential of transferring diseases.
I can say, yeah.
So if I buy banana plants here, I'm only allowed to buy them from certified growers that are allowed to sell into this region. So there are some things you need to be aware of, but the vast majority of things moving around within the state, you're not going to have an issue. There is, in fact, a little guidebook you can get, and so it basically is about interstate quarantine, and it tells you about what you're allowed to move around in the different areas. And this sort of stuff, if you make sure you go onto the government web pages, you'll find there is good information about
we'll look up some details on that and put it on our website.
Yes. No, look, it's gardening. If people are on the road, it's great fun and easy to do. My dear cousin Alex has been on the road for many years with her husband's a FIFO and works all around the country. So she follows him around with the car and the big van, and she gardens wherever she goes to. Yeah.
So it's doable. It is something people can do.
It's very doable, and
just start off small with a little bit.
One of the easiest ways to make your van a home, to really, really say this is our place.
I think that's the whole point.
Yeah,
that's what I like. I like seeing a few flowers maybe and the basics.
If you want to make sure that you're going to get the best out of all these plants that you're moving around with, only ever buy a premium top shelf potting mix. Don't buy this cheap rubbish. You spend the money on a good bag of potting mix. And use quality controlled release fertilizers like Osmocote that are going to last for 6 or 9 months, because that means you basically don't have to worry about refeeding all the time and stuff like that. All you do is then just give them an occasional liquid feed or a sea salt or something like that.
You're not sponsored by Osmocote, are you?
No.
Oh, you should be.
I would have given you a disclaimer up the front.
All right, Adam Woodhams, thank you very much for that.
Can you start a garden now?
Definitely. Very inspirational, particularly with pots or potting. It's given me some ideas there, so I think it's great.
And you get lots of sun. The only thing is that there are kangaroos that bounce by your townhouse. I'm hoping they wouldn't want to bounce over and steal some of your herbs or greens through the fence.
That's a very good point, actually.
That is a point. I hadn't thought about that.
And of course there's birds that come down and go, oh, this looks nice. And, so you got to, I guess, think of all that, whether you're travelling or you're just in a small apartment. So,
Well, we've had fun. I've known Ad forever, and he is such an inspiration. He always used to laugh at my yard in Sydney, even though I grew a wide variety of food things. I apparently grew a wide variety of weeds as well.
Exactly.
Quite unliving.
They look nice, though.
They were healthy because I had compost and chickens and everything else. However, he will be so thrilled, and what I will do for our listeners is put a little post showing our current little crop of herbs and tomatoes. I've got some romas growing in pots and quite a few herbs.
Based around out some of his suggestions. It's not a pretty sight. The plates,
Well, they're not
great.
as pretty as he would do
The
it.
boxes aren't pretty just yet, but we're getting there.
But they're loving it and they're green and we can eat them.
Fantastic. Well, I thank you for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed the show and the chatter and the natter and whatever. We're still coming to grips with everything. You're still coming to grips with it.
Yes.
Do you want to think about that?
No, definitely. Certainly.
We're not the experts, as we always say. We're not the experts. We try and get the information and put it into simple language.
Some of us have had a bad habit of interviewing experts over the years on things, and I cannot resist the urge, like Jocelyn, who's a journalist like me, I cannot resist the urge to go searching for the latest information. So
Absolutely, yeah.
my fingers are sore from hitting the keyboard, chasing up the most information that we can get because, let's face it, our environment is polluted and we're seeing that with our animals. They're, licking themselves, the cats, dogs and things, and getting sick. I'm sure that we should probably be getting rid of more stuff that we're picking up from the environment. So the more we can get information and ideas from our listeners,
Absolutely.
the more we can chase up more stories for you.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Brian Pickering.
I'm Jocelyn Watts.
And I'm Kaye Browne. Thank you.
And if you want to see more and listen to more of our podcast, just go to PooCast.com.au.
Thanks for joining us today on the PooCast podcast. If you like what we do, please share. And remember, our stories are for general information only. Make sure you always seek advice from your registered health professional. And thanks again for listening.